Wes from Carl Wesley Sewing Patterns here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to sew a men's thong. If you don't already have this pattern, you can purchase it as a digital download from a link in the description below. In an effort to keep this video super PG, I'm not going to be showing any pictures of the finished product on a model, but you can also view those over on my online shop. Alright, let's get started.
This is what your pattern will look like once it's printed and assembled. Please note that the rear piece is cut on the fold of the fabric, and the long arrowed lines on the pattern pieces indicate the greatest stretch of the fabric. Also, please note that there is a black triangle notch at the top of the rear piece that you should snip through all layers of fabric. This pattern is designed for stretch jersey knits, and the fabric I'm using in this tutorial is a 4-way stretch printed bamboo jersey. You will only need about 1/3 yard of fabric to sew up any of the sizes. Since there are some tight curves that need to be cut, I suggest using a small rotary cutter if you have one available. After cutting, these are the 3 pieces that you will have. 1 rear T-shaped piece and 2 front pouch pieces. You will also need about 3 yards of 3/8 inch knitted elastic. Please refer to the chart on your pattern printout for the length of elastic you should cut for your waistband. The remaining elastic can stay on the roll. The first step in sewing your thong is to place the front pouch pieces right sides together and serge them around the front curve. All seam allowances for this pattern will be stitched at 3/8 of an inch. The front pouch curve is a fairly tight seam to stitch on the serger, so take your time and carefully guide your stitching around the curve. Do not stretch the fabric while sewing, just allow the machine to pull it through. Now that we've sewn the front pouch seam, open up the pieces and we have a completed front half of the thong. Then place it right sides together on the rear T piece and we will stitch the crotch seams together. Again, we are using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and do not stretch the fabric while it's running through your machine. Next, we want to fold up the front piece of the thong to the rear T piece, right sides together, and then serge both side seams. Here is a picture showing all the seams that should be completed at this point. Next, we need to stitch our waistband elastic into a loop. Overlap the ends about 1 inch and take it to your sewing machine to stitch together with a zigzag stitch. This is a picture of the completed loop of waistband elastic. Now, to aid in the sewing, we need to mark quarter points on our loop of waistband elastic. To find the first quarter point, simply make a pinch at any point around the loop of elastic and mark with tailor's chalk. To find the halfway point on the opposite side of the loop, simply match together the edges of your loop all the way across. To find quarter points 3 and 4, match the first two chalk marks in the middle and mark the quarter points on the left and right sides. We will use these quarter marks to evenly distribute the stretch of the waistband elastic around the waist of our thong. Now we need to place markings on the fabric of our thong. We already know the first two quarter points, which are the center front seam and the double notch at the center back of the thong. The remaining quarter points 3 and 4 can be found by matching the center front and center back, and then pinching out the left and right sides of the thong while it is laying flat. Now, matching the quarter points we just made, use pins or sewing clips to match the waistband elastic to the waist edge of the thong. We will now be serging the waistband elastic to the inside of the thong. In this step, we will be stitching in the round, so you can stitch onto the fabric at any point around the waist, but I usually start near the center back. The waistband elastic is intentionally cut a little bit smaller than the thong, so you will need to stretch the elastic but do not stretch the fabric while sewing. Also, we don't want to trim anything away during this step, so carefully stitch inside the serger knife. You only need to apply just a gentle stretch to the elastic, just enough to match the quarter points we made in chalk. This is what you will have after you have attached the waist elastic using the serger. Next, we need to stitch our remaining elastic to the leg openings of the thong. This is the same process as attaching the elastic waistband, however, there is no specific measurement you need to cut these pieces. If you have one for your serger, an elastic attaching foot can be helpful when sewing on the leg elastics, so you get a perfectly tensioned elastic all the way around. But it really isn't required. I'm going to tension my elastics manually, and the key here, like the waistband elastic, is only to put a gentle stretch on the elastic, but don't stretch the fabric. I normally start stitching on my leg elastics in the round, starting somewhere around the crotch seam. If you are pulling the elastics so tightly that it gathers up the fabric, you are definitely putting way too much tension on the elastic. Similar to attaching the waistband elastic, we want to stitch inside the knife and not trim anything off in this step. As you come all the way back around your leg opening, overlap your starting elastic and stitching by about 1 inch, clip the elastic, and serge off the fabric. Repeat this step twice to attach elastic to both leg openings. Once you have all the elastics attached, this is what your project will look like. All we have left to do now is stitch the elastics down. You can use either a zigzag stitch or a cover stitch if you have that available. All you need to do is fold the elastics once to the inside of the thong so that they are covered with the fabric. Since I'm using a zigzag stitch that looks the same on the top and the bottom, I'm going to stitch my thong from the inside so I can make sure that I stitch directly over the serging. The settings I'm using for my zigzag stitch are a 2.5 length and a 6.0 width. As you are stitching around, apply a gentle stretch as your fabric feeds through the machine. As I approach a bulky part where there are intersecting seams, I like to stitch directly up to the bulky part, raise the presser foot, and place a folded up index card behind the presser foot directly up against the needle. And this will level out the presser foot so you can stitch over the bulk easily. As you come all the way back around the opening, clip the threads from your starting stitches so that they don't get tangled up when you come back to them. Overlap your starting stitches by a small amount, maybe 1/4 of an inch. You will need to repeat this process 3 times in total so that the waistband elastic and both leg opening elastics are top stitched down. Congrats! Your thong is complete.
This concludes the tutorial on sewing a men's thong from Carl Wesley Sewing Patterns. If you need any help or have any additional questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Happy sewing!